If you remember in the last class, we've looked at a number of services. We looked at translate, we looked at transcribe. I mean, we did touch upon a lot of the services in AWS that allows you to do ML and AI, right? So today we'll be starting with Lex. We'll be talking about Amazon Lex, right? And I think Lex is something you must have seen. You must have seen one way or the other because most websites will have like a chatbot, right? Where like you're a customer, you can go there and say I need help, and something is chatting with you, right? So really, if you want to build conversational interfaces, right, chatbot is the word. So whenever you hear chatbot in AWS, anything regarding when you hear chatbot as regards AWS, Lex is that tool, right? Um, it's the same technology that powers Alexa, and the reason is because you know how you use Alexa, right? So it's mostly conversational. Like like play this music. All that is translated to an intent, and that intent carries out an action for you. So that's exactly how Lex works, right? So and we'll see exactly that now. But the point is that you can do automatic speech recognition as one of its feature. It has natural language understanding, and you're going to see this. So, for example, it can actually recognize your intent when you are saying something. For the ones that it can actually just get, right. And then multi-tone conversations, right? Context-aware dialogues. That the point is that you're chatting with it. You're having a conversation with a chatbot, but all the conversations is basically flowing, right? So there's like it understands the context in which that dialogue is happening, right? So it works with a lot of this. There's many integrations you can definitely have, right? You can call Lambda. Definitely know that whatever gets to Lambda can always go to other places, and we'll see how it uses AWS Connect, and then some other services that you will also see. Omni-channel is the fact that it's not just you can pretty much either like have like a UI interface where you're chatting with the chatbot, and you can connect it with SMS. So there's like many channels that in which you can communicate with your chatbot, right? So Lex is simple. Is that simple? It's like chatbot if you're building a chatbot in AWS. So I'm just going to show you what Lex looks like. We're going to actually build something on Lex, and then we'll come back and see how that use case, how we'll be able to relate with that use case once we can build something. Okay. So we'll just go here. Um, you can see this Amazon Lex. It says um, basically it's like a bot. You can create your own bot in AWS. So we're going to create a bot. We're going to create a bot. I'm going to use traditional. I think, like I said, I think I've said it severally on this call. I'll say it again. Everything is tilting towards generative AI, and that's where I feel, especially if you're just starting your cloud or AI career, you should focus more on generative AI. Okay, there's more potential there. So creation method, I'm just going to use instead of generative AI. Generative AI can do more, but I'm just going to do a traditional bot, right? In my case, I'm going to call it a mentorship bot, which is exactly what I want to create. So I want to create a mentorship bot, right? So what do I want to use this bot for? Yeah, I'm a mentor, for example. So if I really wanted to create a bot, maybe I have a website, and I have a bot where you can pretty much go there and talk to me, and reach out to me, book a session. I can have all that integrated. Maybe something that adds something to my calendar or informs me there is a new. I mean, all that can happen. So I'm just say my mentorship bot, right? So it's there. I'm going to create an IAM role. So create a role with Amazon Lex permission. Usually, you know how it is that you need to have roles for things to work. Error logs, I'm enabling it so that maybe I can see logs in CloudWatch. Use of your bot is subject to, I'm just going to say no. To the children's is use of your bot subject to blah blah blah. It's not. I'm just going to go next. So I'm going to go next. And I've created, it's more or less like, it's that simple. So I've already created it. The bot is creating. So if I scroll up, it's creating, right? So I've created a bot, right? Usually your bot will have like a language in which communication is happening. So which is where we're going to start from. So in this case, I'm just going to call it the language is English, but there are many languages that you can author your bot in, right? In this case, I'm using English, and I'll say my English bot. Let me just call it that, right? That's books, mentorship on my my keyboard behalf, right? So that's it. There is voice. I don't know if
Hello, my
I don't,
name is
I'm
Danielle.
sure you can hear
Let me
that,
know
but
how I can assist you.
that's really the voice in this case that I want to use. There are other voices that you can use. I'm just going to do done. In this case, I just want to test with English, so I'll do done, right? So when you have a bot, right, one of the key things of a bot is really, so right now I can actually build this bot, and I can build it. So I'm just going to build. So I've just, it says couldn't build language in bot mentorship. Let's see. Let me see. I'm just going to create a mentorship intent. So mentorship intent, call it mentorship intent, right? So in this case, I'm going to say my mentorship, my my bots for mentorship booking, right? So I'm just going to call it this, right? Good, it's there. I'll save the intent. Intent is basically, so we're going to see how that looks like. But what I really want to start with, so the bots are known for intent, and then they are known for like slots, right? So intent basically is, it's like utterances. It's like the things you want to do. So in this case, I'm just going to start first with a simple intent. So here, I'm just going to go here. I'll say book AWS mentorship, meaning if someone wants to interact with my bot, that's really where they should start from. So I'm going to add that utterance, and then I'm going to save the intent, and then I'll build a bot. So it's building, right? So my first bot is building. What have I done? I created a bot. I added an intent. The intent in this case is exactly what I stand for, like book AWS mentorship, right? So if you go to if you go to the bot and you say that, it's definitely going to answer you, right? So let's give it some time to build. I think that's just going to be the trick for today's class. Many of the things that we will be showing might be some of them take time to test. So, but let's see. I'll try and see if we can get through this fast. But I'm just going to build the first one, test it, and after that time I'll just be building. Okay, so I'll just be building. But right now it's building. You can see it here building English language. So let me scroll a bit, and then let me even reduce my screen. Yeah, so you can see. So the bot is built. Right now I can go back here and click on test. So if I go here and click on test and I do hello, you see it did intent, intent fallback intent is fulfilled, meaning it actually used the fallback intent, right? And that's because I did not specify exactly what I want the bot to do, right? So but if I go back and I paste exactly what I want, you can see intent mentorship is fulfilled, right? So it means that if I put the right message, the right intent is fulfilled. You can see. So it means, yeah, we're really good at this point. It means there's something we can build upon, right? So when I did a hello, it didn't recognize that. But when I did book AWS mentorship, it did try to call my intent, right? So let's now build upon it. So we know that a user would say book AWS mentorship. What else do they want to do? Remember, your use case will differ. So in this case, I'm just going to go in there and so the thing is that in this case, it's just static, right? Book AWS mentorship, and really that's how I want it to be, which is where slot comes in, right? So information that the bot needs to fulfill the intent, right? This intent itself is like conversational, but at some point I need slots, right? Slot are the information I need from the user, because if you want to book a mentorship from me, for example, maybe you want to tell me what exactly, which of my offerings are you interested in, when you want to start, how many months do you want to do that mentorship with me, right? So I have a couple of, so I'm just going to start. So I'm going to go slot here. So the first slot I'm going to create, so once you tell me, that you've already booked, you want to book AWS mentorship. The next thing I'm asking you is that which program are you interested in, right? So in this case, I'm going to call it a program type, right? So it's a program type. You can call it whatever you want. In this case, I definitely feel it's alphanumeric, right? Because it's the person is either going to say CCP, SA, or maybe say Gen AI. So I'm going to add. It's also required intent, meaning you have to provide that value for me. So that's first one. So I'm also going to add another slot. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to do when do you want to start, right? Because if you choose a program, the next thing you want to tell me is when are you going to start. So I'm going to say it's a start date, and then it's a type of Amazon.date, right? and then I'm going to add. It's also required. I need you to tell me when you want to start, for me to be able to provide mentorship to you. So I'm going to add another slot, and that says in this case, you can see how many months do you want to commit to, meaning for that mentorship, how many months do you want to commit to? I'll call it months. So here I'll call it a month, and then in this case, it's going to be a number, right? Here it says duration, but actually I just want it to be a number because it's either you're saying 3, 4, 5, or 6. Maybe that's the range I'm supporting, right? I'll do that. They're all required intent in this case. So now remember, slots are basically a way for you to collect information, right? That would fulfill the intent that you want. So what I now need to do is to begin to add utterances, right? So I can do things like this. So once I do curly brace, it can actually bring all the intents that you have. So I'm going to put program type, which is after book AWS mentorship. I'm asking you for the program type. I'm going to add that. I'm also asking you for, what do you call it? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to see start date as the next intent utterance that I need from you. And then the last one will be how long? Like months, right? So I'll add that. So we've made progress to our chatbot. So think about it. We started with a static one, and then we did put in slot that would allow us to actually fulfill that intent. Because if you say book AWS mentorship, maybe I want more information from you, right? So with that, I'm going to save the intent, and then I'm going to build legs again. So I'm going to scroll up. Where is it? I'm going to build. So it's building. We just added three more things to it, right? So we'll build, and then we test again and see if it's better now. So we're going to do that. Let's give it time to build. But I think you would have seen this before. If you visit some website, they usually have like a customer. Like this for me, a bot is like your customer. I mean, sometimes maybe if it's automatic, you can do it, or maybe you can route it to someone, and we'll see how another service can help with that. But the point is that you can actually have a bot that does things. So it's here, and so what we're going to do, because it's built, we are going to test it, right? So the built version, I'm just going to do book AWS mentorship again, so that it doesn't go to the old in the. So I'll do this. Missing required params. See key. What does it mean? Let me test again. Let me just refresh this and do this. So it says you can see the first time we did that, it just fulfilled it, right? But now it knows that basically we need to say other things, right? So I can say blah blah blah, right? It's going to take it. In this case, there's no validation happening. It's just taking that, right? So when do you want to start? Maybe tomorrow. And then how many months do you want to commit to? It's exactly what we were asking. So I'll say 3, right? Cool. And he said mentorship intent is fulfilled. So the point is that we're able to ask for the variables that was needed for it to be able to do its thing. And he said at this point that the intent has been fulfilled, right? Remember that the conditions that make your intent to be fulfilled can be different. It depends on the use case. And you see how we can improve on this. So what else can we take? Because this is just conversational at this point. It doesn't really give you the value you want to see, which is where Lambda can come in, right? So what we'll do is that we're going to create a Lambda function. I'll create a basic Lambda function. In this case, I'm going to call it my mentorship Lambda, right? So what I'll do is I'll call it, I think in this case, I love Python. I'll use Python 3.13. I'll create a function. So I'm creating a basic Python function. The point is that I want to use that function to handle my intent. Remember, this is my chatbot. It's in my website. Somebody's coming. I want AWS mentorship. I've asked the question of which program are you interested in, and when do you want to start? I've asked the person how many months the person wants to use. I think I also need to save that information somewhere, or process it, or send the person an email, right? Which is where Lambda comes in. So in this case, I'm not going to do much first. So I'm just going to do print event, right? So I'm just going to print whatever event was called, right? I'm just going to do that, and I'll deploy. So I'll deploy that Lambda function. Then I'm going to go back to my intent. So in this case, what I'm going to do is to go to here, which is this one. So go here. I'll look for my mentorship intent. So I can actually scroll down and say that I want to use the Lambda function for initialization and validation, right? So I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to save the intent. But in this case, I've said I want to use a Lambda function for initialization and validation. You know why? Because when I said which program are you interested in, CCP, SA, or Gen AI, the person did put something. Maybe this is not valid, right? You need to be able to tell me if it's CCP you're interested in, SA, or Gen AI. Maybe that's why I'm saying I need to validate this person's input, right? So, but we've now selected like a Lambda function to do that. So what we can do is we can go back to the alias, which is like the one that handles the one that is your particular version that is deployed. So I'll go here, and I need to basically do like an edit. So I'll go to the languages in this case. Then I'll choose a Lambda function. So I'll choose my mentorship Lambda, choose the latest, or whichever if you were using like a version Lambda, and then I'm going to save it, right? So I'm going to save it. And then when I save it, I'm going to go back to the mentorship bot, and then I'm going to do, what is it called? So I'm going to go to my intents for US, and then I'm going to test it again. So build, remember we added Lambda function now. I'm just going to build it again. You basically have to build for that integration to start happening, and then I'll start testing again. So what did we do? We created an intent. Right now, we created an intent, then we created slots. Slots will help us fulfill the intent because we're gathering information from the user that would allow us to fulfill the intent. But now we're also saying sometimes the person is having conversation, but sometimes what the person is saying might not match exactly what we want to get from them, which is where a Lambda can come in for you to do validations, get exactly the information you're looking for, and then be able to more or less like service the person properly. So if I go here and I paste and I do, you can see it says this, and it's understandable because now it says invalid response. It means it's actually called the Lambda function. You can see invalid response. It says that cannot construct instance of intent response. I think I know why. So I'm going to go back to that function that we created. I'm going to refresh this page. I'm going to get the function that we did create. So we created my mentorship Lambda. I'm just going to go to CloudWatch. I think this, apart from Lex, I think this should be all basic stuff, which is why I'm not going to talk much about it because I believe by now we know these things, right? So I'm going to go to CloudWatch logs and see, what is it? And see what the Lambda function was called with, right? So I'm going to go there and do this. So you can see actually the Lambda was called, and it was called with certain parameters, right? This right now is not very readable as I wanted, but it's fine. The most important thing is that you can see it did call it. So let's even look at, you can see the intent is the name, the slots. It did recognize our slot. So it knows start date, it recognized months, program type, right? And then, but now they are just none, right? Maybe this is what you want to validate. Maybe you want to be sure that the user is actually interacting with the bot correctly, right? So what I'm going to do is that just because we can't really go through exactly everything in this class, but it's basic stuff because I already know the events. The event is here. You can actually see it, and then you can just treat it. Use Python to basically organize how you want it to be. But I'm just going to go back to that same Lambda function that we created. So I'm going to go to the code, and then I'll paste a code that I have that is working. So what I'm going to do is, this is the code. What we had before was print, what do you call it? I think we only had like print the event, right? But now I'm going to paste a set of code, right? So when you see the set of code, what is it doing? It basically has like a validation part. So there's like a function that validates what it's doing. It's trying to check the valid programs that I offer is CCP, SA, and Gen AI. If it's not that, it's not valid. It's also checking like it's validating the program type. It's also checking to make sure that you actually give me a start date when you want to start. It's looking at the month. It's trying to validate the month to make sure that it's less, if the month is less than 3 or it is greater than 6, then no, I only support between 3 to 6 month mentorship, right? It's doing all that. But the handler itself will do two things. So it's when it is doing dialog code hook, it is going to validate, right? And then at the last point where it is doing, if you scroll down, when it is a fulfillment hook, meaning everything has matched, then it's going to do this part of the function, right? So what we're going to do is we'll just deploy. Remember, there was an event. I saw it. I did print it. So you just need to look at that event, see exactly what is being passed to you, and then change it however you want. Just making sure you understand the events and then the things that you care about, right? So in this case, I've deployed it again. So let's go back to our um, what is it? We don't even need to do anything here because now we should just be able to test again. So book AWS mentorship. In this case, it has called the first time it failed, but now it's working. So what will happen if I just do this, right? You can see we currently support only CCP, Sage, and AI as valid programs, but please choose one. Meaning it's not valid, so it's not going to move forward unless I can actually give it a valid class. So I'm going to do SA. So in this case, I've said SA, right? I can say I want to do tomorrow. So when do you want to start? I want to start tomorrow. And the next thing is, how many months do you want to commit to? What if I type gibberish, like something, how many months? It's still asking me, basically. And that's because I'm not doing a lot of validation, right? I'm just doing this. But ideally, maybe that's where you want to validate to be sure the person is giving numbers, and all that. But it says, in this case, you really need to commit between 3 to 6, right? So I'm just going to do 5 in this case. And you see, it tells me intent mentorship, your mentorship intent, the most important thing is that it's fulfilled. So if we go back to that Lambda function and we check, you see that it's actually calling the Lambda function. This one, you see there's a number of events, but now the things you should take note of is that, original values tomorrow. You can see the program type. What was resolved was SA. So I know right now the person is interested in solutions architect. For Yeah, in this case, we'll talk about this, but I did say tomorrow, but because Lex can be smart enough because it's using AI, it can actually tell me tomorrow is 17, so you can use that tomorrow's date, right? But you can see it did get for months, it did give me 5, and it did. But one thing you notice is that right now it's saying that the intent is fulfilled. So what we can actually go back to do is to go to mentorship, the mentorship intents that we have. Right now, if you notice, when it fulfilled, they said mentorship, intent mentorship intent is fulfilled, right? But maybe we want to actually also use the Lambda to fulfill that intent, right? So what I can do is I can scroll down to, you see there's like a confirmation, there's like a fulfillment part. So what I can do is here, I can go to advanced options, and then I can say use the Lambda function to do the fulfillment, right? Because in this case, it just gave me it has been fulfilled, but maybe I want to also use a Lambda function to actually do that, right? Maybe that's actually where the action should happen from, because now I've gotten when the person wants to start, how long the person is doing the program the person is exactly like the program the person is interested in. Maybe I want to send them an email. Maybe I also want to send myself a booking, maybe save it in a database or send myself an email. There are many things I can do, right? So I'm going to build, I've just updated that, and so I'm going to build it again. Let me just zoom in a bit. So I'm going to build. I don't know if you guys have seen what I just did, but I just clicked the build button. So build button. So I'm just going to take this down. So I clicked build. Let me zoom in a bit. The build is a bit hidden. So I'm just taking, yeah, so the build is here. So maybe I'll leave my screen like this so that you can actually have more real estate, okay? So I'm just going to do, the build is moving. So I'll let it build. After building, we'll test again and then see what we get. So we're building. Let's give it some time. After building, we'll test. Okay. But what have we done up to this point? We did create an intent. The intent is really you want someone to book mentor. I mean, it could be something else. It could be booking a flight. It could be, it depends. It depends on what you offer, like what your business is all about. But in this case, I'm just going to test it again. I'm just going to use the same book AWS mentorship that I did use in the past. I'm going to do this book. Which program am I interested in? Maybe this time I'm interested in CCP. And then when do you want to start? I want to start tomorrow. I can also put a date, right? Because when I was creating that, I did put that I needed a date. How many months do you want to commit to? 3 months. 3 months. Thanks. I have booked. Because this, if you check, this is actually in the Lambda function, right? Right now, I'm just sending back a message, but you can also send other things. So if you go back to the function, you can see, thanks, I booked your mentorship. So this is where, if everything is fulfilled, you can actually now do whatever you want to do. Maybe book the person, get the person's details, put all that in your calendar, set that all up, right? But there's also more you can do. I'm just going to do one more thing and then I'll call it, there's more we can do with Lex, but this is not a Lex class, but I'm just trying to tell you that you can see I'm already building a chatbot without having to do much, right? Just Lex and Lambda function and we're good. So the thing again is, if you notice, one thing you notice is that here, the user is saying CCP, SA, Gen AI. You can make that flexible, right? So what it means is that I can actually go to my slot instead of the user having to choose, because now, although I'm validating it, but this is not a good user experience because now the user is having to look at this and choose them exactly how it is. But you can also just provide this as an option for the user, and the user can select one of those. So we can actually go to this, and we can go to advanced options, for example. And there are many intelligent things we can do here, but I'm just going to keep it simple. So what I can do is I can go to bot elicit. I can do more prompt options, and then I can add a card group. So the point is that I can actually, right now it is showing which program are you interested in, right? CCP, SA, or Gen AI, right? But I can actually create a group for that. So I'm going to copy what I have here. I'm going to bring it down and create like a group for it. Right now I don't have an image URL, but you can make it fancy if you wanted. I don't need a subtitle. Maybe I'll create a button. And here I'm going to say CCP. I'll create CCP here. I'll create another CCP. This is the title, and this is going to be the value. And then I'll add another button. I will do SA, and it's going to be SA as the value. And then I'm going to add the last one, which is Gen AI, right? So Gen AI. Maybe I want to call it Gen AI, and then maybe the value is actually I don't know, maybe Gen AI, right? So with that, I probably will just remove this message group and then instead use a card group. So I'm just going to remove this and then use a card group and then update the prompts. So if I update the prompt, it's actually going to update, and then I'll update the slots. So once I have my slot updated, remember I just went to program type, right? So I'm going to build it again for one more time. So bot is not ready for testing yet. I'm just going to give it time to maybe move this here. Bot is not ready for testing, so let's give it some time. It's still building. And then once it's done, we'll test again, okay? So what did I do? Initially, we usually call the bot with, it provides option, and then we have to look at it and be sure that we're providing the right option. But you can also give them an option to choose from, right? So instead of manually typing it in, you can help them, right? Create a better user experience, and you can even have you can have like an image that is showing there, but we won't have time to go through all that. There is so much we can do here, right? So our bot is ready. So let's test it again. So I'm going to say build this one, book AWS mentorship. So you can see how different it is now, right? So before GCP, CCP, SA, Gen AI were options that you had to look at the screen and fill, right? But now I can just pick one. So I can just do CCP, right? Right now it has moved on to the next part, but you can see how we've changed the user experience from just having what we had before, the user being able to see. In fact, even the CCP, SA, and Gen AI, maybe I don't even need this. I can delete that entirely and just provide them the three options, right? So, and then when do you want to start? I'll say tomorrow. Let's even say next tomorrow, right? Let's see, next tomorrow. It knows, right? It's smart enough to know what next tomorrow is with the context of when you're speaking, right? And then how many months do I want to commit to? 3 months. And then it says thanks, right? So your booking has been fulfilled. So like I said, all these you can do more validation, you can do, and then you can actually put in the logic that actually does things, right? Whether it's sending someone an email, sending someone a notification, SMS, and there's a lot you can do, right? So this is like the chatbot, but in the real world you deploy this. You can also use even messaging platforms to do SMS communication to your bot. There is just so much we can do, but this is not a Lex class, right? So but just to tell you that, yeah, it's that easy. It's that easy to just build a chatbot, right? We're just building it on the call, and we've barely spent how many minutes, but we're already productive, and we have like a chatbot. So I'm going to go back to the slide. I'm going to leave that as is. So let's look at. So if I look at the slide, in the next page, there is really a sample. What do you call it? A sample architecture, and it's similar to where I'm coming from. So you can see just building it. We can actually see a sample one, right? So the sample one here is saying you're using, on the left is really how you're interacting with Lex. In this case, we were just testing manually, right? But in the real world, maybe like there's a messaging app, or you're using Amazon Connect to talk to Lex, and then Lex is going to, invoke a Lambda because of the conditions you have and the slot and the intent and everything. And then, so in this case, actually, the problem case that was being handled here is that if you notice, many of our intent, our slots, we did craft those, right? Sometimes maybe the user is saying something and you don't really understand what they're saying. That is where Bedrock can come in. We're going to see what Bedrock is, but you can actually use Bedrock to help to understand what the person is trying to say and try to fill in the right intent, right? Because the most important thing is you're trying to know which intent, like the next intent to do. But sometimes you're also getting response from the user and you want to be able to intelligently do that. And if you see when we're trying to create the bot, there was an option for generative AI. But before you could actually just do Bedrock to do that. But now with generative AI already part of it, I think you can explore that option to just have this, not even need this kind of architecture again. But the blog is here if you wanted to read more. But the point is that you can guide the user to use your bot appropriately. But sometimes when you don't even understand what the user wants, you can use more or less like a generative AI solution like Bedrock to generate the right intent and then flow, right? So best of both worlds. And that's basically the task. So you see, user interacts, first of all, trying to interact with your bot. Lex will interpret the intent for the most part, right? But when the intent now, you don't understand it, you can now use Bedrock to try to understand the intent and call the to make the next action. So it's like you're using Bedrock to prompt Lex to do the right thing, right? But there's a blog. You can read more about it. Honestly, love these blogs. Love them. Look at architectures. See what they're trying to say, what they're trying to do, and that's how you grow. Okay. So we're not going to talk about the next. I'm not going to stress much on Connect. Connect is basically, yeah, we've seen Lex. So Lex is like a chatbot that can, you can deploy a chatbot on its own. Whether you have like a website, you needed a chatbot to do that. But there is also Connect, meaning you can have like a cloud-based contact center. It depends. I have worked with a company before that had a contact center as part of their offering, so I understand what it looks like. Ideally, you have like agents who are sitting down receiving calls, communicating, but you can do all that with Amazon Connect, right? And the point is that the same voice, the same chat platform, so omni-channel basically, right? Where you can engage your customers, whether you want them to call you or you want them to chat you through, for them to interact with your customer service. You can do all that with Amazon Connect, right? The good thing about it, like we've seen with all the cloud thing, all the things we've explored in AWS cloud, um, is the fact that it's all pay as you go in this case, right? So you don't need, like, if in the traditional contact center you have to set up the contact center, deploy agents and all that. But here you basically pay as you go. You scale as you scale, then you begin to, and it's easy setup. So you do it from the AWS console. You saw how we were doing Lex. It was also from the AWS. So launch contact center in minutes, basically. AI powered, meaning you can also do a lot of integration, right? So you can integrate it with Lex, you can integrate it with Transcribe and other AI services that AWS has, right? And then you can do real-time analytics, right? Because, for example, we've seen how Comprehend can help you with things like understanding, you can understand this, like you can do sentiment analysis, right, with Comprehend. So for example, you can actually go, but what it means is that you can look at your logs of the calls, all the calls that was made, agent call, the agent interaction, the user's interaction, and see, gain customer insight to see if the customer left happy from that call or not. And we've seen how you can even do a lot of that already with many of the services that we've seen in the past, right? So which is good. Just so you know, Connect is not something easy for us to just show like that, but just know there is a contact center service in AWS, and it's called Amazon Connect. It's huge for those who need it. So ideally, if you look at like an architecture here, it's also here. There's a blog that talks about it. But the whole idea is that a user will call Connect, right? Amazon Connect in this case will front all that conversation, right? And then Connect is going to hand that over to Lex. Lex just needs, you can also have conversations with Lex, right? And then, in this case, what is really happening is that it's similar to the solution that we've seen. It's just that in this case, Connect is really the entry point, right? So it's exactly what I discussed where we're using Lex, but in this case, we're just focusing on Connect being the entry point to Lex. Okay. The blog is also the post is here. You can also read more about it. But the point is that these things will just begins to open your eyes to many of the opportunities and the things you can do with many of these services, right? Sometimes when you look at the service, you understand it, but it's when you combine it with 2 or 3 or 4 more services in AWS, you begin to see the beauty. And it's always beautiful when you deploy these things live and they're supporting production workloads. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about. I'm not going to say much again regarding Connect. The next service is Kendra. So we've talked about two services: Lex, Connect. Lex can stay on its own. Connect can also, but you can always combine it, one service or multiple services to get the value, the true value of what you want in the cloud. So let's talk about Kendra. Usually, you know how it is that we are now in a world where ML is ruling a lot of things, right? So generative AI, machine learning, and all that. So if you were actually looking for intelligent enterprise search service powered by ML inside of AWS, that's where Kendra comes in. So the point is that we know how it is to have something that searches, right? If you've used Elasticsearch, OpenSearch, all the search kind of tools that are out there, it's not easy, right? You have to do like indexing, you have to get those data, but you can do that same thing easily with Kendra, right? So the beauty of it is that it supports natural language search, right? And that's where the world is moving towards, where people need to answer questions, but they don't really need to be very technical to do that, right? Usually in the past, for example, if you wanted to do some things, you have to be more or less like technical, but now natural language is taking is doing more of that, right? People are now depending on natural language to have things done for them, right? So when you're having conversations, you can speak them in your natural language, and Kendra is able to basically answer those questions for you, right? But the point is that enterprise search is what you get. Um, the key features there is that you do natural language queries. So you search like you're asking a person. That's exactly how you do your queries. It's going to do there's obviously an indexing part. Like with all search, you have to index, you have to put in the data, and then from that point on, you can search that data, right? So document understanding, Kendra can do all that, understand context, not just the keywords that are in that document. And one of the beautiful things about Kendra is the fact that it has multiple data sources that you can use. So S3, SharePoint, Salesforce, your database, you can put all that inside of Kendra and just have like a search platform to search it. One way you can think about this, you have your organization, you have knowledge scattered here and there, and you wanted to centralize that knowledge where someone can go to a UI and just be able to find things. Yeah, it's Kendra, you can use Kendra, right? It also learns, and it basically can improve from how you use it as time goes on. Before this call, I've already, because yeah, Kendra is not easy to create, it takes time, but before this call I'd already created one, but I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to go to Kendra. I'm going to go to Kendra. Kendra is here. It's also one of those services that are not hard. So you basically start from creating an index. So what I'll do is I'll leave this open, and then I'm just going to see, like, I want to create an index in another page. So I'm going to go here and do create index. While we are here also, I'm just going to go back to Lex, right? Just so you know, ideally you can just go back to, I know we've passed Lex, but I'm just going to go back. It's as simple as, we've done all the experimentation. I was in US West 2 when I was doing all the experimentation. We're done with that, right? So we've created a bot. The bot is working fine. Maybe we don't need it. We've like you've seen the agility that you get in the cloud. You can innovate. We just innovated, but maybe now we don't need it again, right? You don't need to keep it running. I can just delete it, right? It's as simple as that. It's gone. Just so you remember, you can delete. So I'm going to go back to Kendra. Kendra, mostly you just need to create an index. So I was here trying to create an index. You create an index. That's where you start from. And like if you know many of these search, you usually will have an index where you query to get your information, right? So you fill this. You do, let's say, test index. I'm not going to create it. It takes time. So I'm not going to create it on this call. I'm just going to see my test index, just so that you see some of the information that you need to provide. So test, is it test? Yeah, index. Usually it will need you to create a role. I'll just say create a new role, recommended, give it a name, just call it that. And then I'll just do next. If you want to encrypt, it gives you some options here, right? But there's also free tier for Kendra if you wanted to explore it, right? It gives you all that. I'm just going to use maybe GenAI. You can see GenAI is also appearing here again, right? So that just also tells you that GenAI is really where the future is heading towards, okay? A lot will be GenAI. So here you can use tokens for access control. In this case, I'm not doing anything. But once I do that, all I need to do is just do a create, right? That's going to take time. So I'm not going to do that. Before this call, I'd already created an index. The index is here. Once you have an index, you can see, create an index, add a data source, design, tune, and share your search experience, right? It's as simple as that. Design, tune, probably will not do, but I've created an index, I've created a data source. So here I did use like a sample. So add data source. I did use like sample AWS documentation. So I used that data set, but you can actually see all the data set that are supported here. MySQL, this one, it says no, some of these ones are obviously no longer available, but there's S3, there is Dropbox, Gmail, there's so many, right? There's so many connectors that you can have, right? So I'm not going to talk about those. I'm just going to go to my data source. I've created one, and that's the one that is using the sample AWS documentation, and it's here. But the most important thing is the third step is also you building your search experience, right? So what is a search experience? You're basically going to experiences. No, sorry, you can build a search experience, right? But in this case, I don't want to build it on this call. I'm just going to do search, right? Say maybe search for Lambda. Just do Lambda, right? So I'll just do search. I'll do Lambda. You can see it did index the AWS documentation, and then I can search, right? And then you can create an experience on top of that search for your employees. So if you had like documents here and there, whether they're in S3, they're in so many places, you can create like a search experience for your company where there's like a one-stop place you can go and you can find information, right? And that's really what Kendra is all about. Obviously there are more advanced things you can do with Kendra, okay? But I'm just here introducing it to you, and just introducing it as like we're just familiarizing with ourselves with many of these services, right? Cool. That's Kendra in a nutshell. So we'll just go back. So I think when you're done, as with most things, you can delete them. So here I'm just going to go to my index. I'm going to go to my data source. Maybe I don't need it again. I'll just delete, delete, delete. I'll do that. Probably it's going to take a while. I'm not sure if I can delete the index while the data source is deleting. But what it means is I can go to indexes. I can do this one. Let me do delete. Other reasons. I'll just delete it. So it's deleted. So it's gone, right? That's the beauty of the cloud, right? You can explore, you can set up a machine, use for 1 minute, or just use it for like 30 minutes, and you can tear it down, right? So that's one of the beauty why it's you're in the cloud. You can explore with so many things, many solutions around AI, around compute, around databases, just quickly without you having to set up anything, and you're good to go, right? So let's go to the next agenda, next thing on the agenda, basically. So we just talked about Kendra as an enterprise search. I do have I love architectures, okay? Architectural diagrams, okay? And I'm preaching it to you even as a beginner. You should be interested. So in this case, you can see user uploads like data to S3. We've seen how S3 is, right? We've used S3. S3 comprehend can take that data. In this case, they're basically converting entities from like what is uploaded to S3, right? So store sample news articles in S3. That's like a very good use case. Comprehend is extracting, entities from that data. We saw how comprehend can actually get metadata from, from like something that is a document, right? And then, that metadata information is stored inside another S3 bucket, right? And that is fed to Kendra, right? Once that is in Kendra, then you can search it. That's just the point. You can create an experience on top of that where someone can search, right? But you can see that one thing builds on top of the other, right? The more you understand one service, it just begins. That's where senior architecting comes in. That's where growth comes in, because you're just beginning to see real patterns in the cloud, and you're beginning to see how they add up, right? So cool. So if you think about it, Kendra is basically an aggregation point. You can use it to aggregate the things you want to create a search experience for, and you can just deploy the search to your organization, and you're good to go. Cool. We're not going to stay long on Kendra, right? We're still introducing. That brings me to my favorite topic, right? Because Bedrock is really, for me, generative AI. I'll say it and I'll say it again. Generative AI is one thing you should keep paying attention to, right? The reason is because machine learning. I introduced machine learning, what machine learning is, what AI is. I did a brief of introduction, right? But the point is that if you think about the world right now, like let's assume there are like 1,000 companies out there, right? The percentage that would want to train a model from scratch, like even if it's not scratch, even if it's doing transfer learning, or they are doing like more or less like, or they are building on top of a model, whatever it is, the companies that are doing that are very few, right? Because yeah, all that takes time. You have to, like, whether you're using AWS provided solution or you're using yours, it takes a lot of time for you to train a machine learning model, right? That would give you something valuable. So the only companies that do that are really people who are at the forefront of, like, they have like maybe like a proprietary algorithm that they're training that does a solution for them, right? So it's fine. You can also apply. You can build skills and that around that area. But the point is that the skill that will be more valued as time is going is generative AI, right? Because that's where all the agents are. Agentic AI is using generative AI. Many of the things you do when you go to ChatGPT, when you're using your cursor, all of that is generative AI, right? Because it's using or an already trained. If you see, for example, when you're using cursor, for those who don't know cursor, cursor is like an IDE where you can more or less, like, you can code. It's like your coding assistant on the side, right? But if you think about it, you always speak a model, right? So it means that it's not like the tool is orchestrating the model, right? But the most important thing is the model is still playing the role of Gen AI, because the model, many of those models are trained. They already have been trained on code, so they can write code well, right? So ChatGPT is more or less like the general guy who can do a lot of things. He can code, he can, generate articles and all that. They are still generative AI. Although these days you can see some of them can open the website, they can. So the thing is that people are already getting so much value without having to train their own model, which means people begin to pay less emphasis on training models and then begin to build generative apps, right? And generative apps have taken a new turn, just so you know, because now I can just deploy a generative app with a Lambda function now, as at today, right? Which is more or less like advanced conversation. But the point I'm trying to stress here is that, please, as you grow in your journey, focus on generative AI. That's going to be like the major part, whether it's around application development or around infrastructure development or like cloud engineering. Generative, you need to understand generative AI, whether deploying them, monitoring them, or building them, right? Good. So what is Bedrock? Which is why Bedrock is going to get popular. So it's something, if you really want to be that person who understands cloud, AWS cloud, and have a bit of cloud AI, you need to understand Bedrock. Okay, and I'll be teaching about Bedrock as time goes on, because I think I've done almost everything that there is to do with Bedrock. But the point is that Bedrock is really fully managed service for generative AI application. That's one thing you should take note of, is generative AI, right? Because now in this case, you're basically using generative AI to build applications, right? Which is again going to be like the one of the benefit to it is, like, you have access to foundation models, right? So it means that all the leading models, most of the leading models that are out there, you have access to them. You don't need to train them. You don't need to do anything. Just an API call, and you're already using them, right? And then you can build scale generative AI apps without managing infrastructure. That's also another beauty. I mean, you don't even need to set up any machine. You know how Lambda is serverless, and if I can build an agent that runs on Lambda, why should I care about setting up a machine to do anything for me, right? So there is some models that you see there. Amazon Titan is one, which is Amazon's own model. Anthropic is obviously there. And then there are other specialized models that you're going to see. Okay. Bedrock is obviously not beginner. I'm just introducing the subject to you, but I'm going to show you what Bedrock looks like in the UI. So when I started doing Bedrock, it was just Bedrock, but it's now Bedrock Agent Core. And I'm going to show you what both of them look like, just to tell you what is changing. Bedrock Agent Core is going to be the thing that is more used, right? Because um, it has more, like, it supports many ways of you doing the same thing that you would have done with Bedrock now, because now you can bring your own custom runtime. Custom runtime just means runtimes that were not built like with Lambda or were not built with AWS technology. You can bring it out. But this is really Bedrock, right? And the point is that um, that, it even says a new model is now available, meaning this model is already good to go. I can use it, right? If you go here, before there used to be like a model access, right? But right now, this model access has been retired. So in the past, you in your account, you would request a model, right? So you request a model, meaning you are saying, I want to use this model. But now I think going forward, all models will be enabled. But if you want to disable a model within your account, you can always disable it. But the good part is, this is still Bedrock. This is the main Bedrock that I'm talking about right now. The fact is that you can build agents. So you can create an agent. It's as simple as just creating an agent. You can actually have an agent use a knowledge base, right? Knowledge base is more or less like, and that's where some advanced subjects around, vector databases come in. But the whole idea is that you can actually, like you can see, it's a vector store. And let me zoom in a bit. But the point is that you can just create a knowledge base. So if I was to create, for example, knowledge base with vector store, yeah, all this is going to, but you can see the sources, right? Number one is you need to pay attention. Like, you can have an S3, so you can have an agent that uses a knowledge base, right, to actually do things better. Remember, an agent itself is different from the knowledge base. The knowledge base can aid the agent to do more work, right? But the point is that you have things like agents, and you create agents, and your agents can use knowledge bases. You can do things like prompt management, right? So you can have like prompt management where you have like prompts, you can create a prompt, you can use all those prompts, and then you can actually do things like guardrails. What it just means is that you can guard the responses of your generative AI applications, right? So you can create a guardrail, you can test them, you can deploy them. Deploy them means you're deploying them, you're using them, your agent is using it, right? So you can go, there's like a test playground, all these things you can test them, you don't need to stress. In this case, it's as simple as chat. I will select a model, for example. You can see just at a go, I already have all these models on the left. I think before, I'm not still sure why it's not showing. Um, I don't know if it still needs me. Okay, let me try and do Amazon. Obviously, many of the let me say Nova Pro apply. Will it tell me anything? Okay, I'm just going to see how are you? No, sorry. That's like a system prompt, but let's just do how are you? Let's just do this. I think everyone is familiar with this, right? Yeah, this is basically, I don't have any personal experience or emotions, but this is generative AI. So it means this model, I'm already using it. There are many ways you can there are many ways you can use this generative AI already, because we've seen how we're using Lambda, we're using Lex and all that. So anything you are doing today with generative AI, you still can do it with all your AWS applications, or all the things you are building in AWS, right? The models are there, they're ready to use, or you're invoking them using API calls. The point is that Bedrock allows you not to even think about creating a machine or creating anything, and you're already good to go. So it's completely serverless, right? Cool. So here I'm already testing with a Nova Pro. You can obviously test, you can change, you can test, you can iterate quickly, right? Using different models and see which one gives you like the best result, right? But there are many, many more things. Honestly, Bedrock itself deserves its own class. So when you leave Bedrock, there is now Bedrock Agent Call. The point is that, like I said, there's going to be, I think there is also a link. If you scroll down here, there is like the agent call, so which is going to take you to exactly the link I'm taking you to now, but it's just because I know the service. But the point is that you can even take that to a different scale entirely. Not just the Bedrock, but you can actually now use agent runtime. You can use Lambda functions. You can create gateways. This is going to be the future of generative AI on AWS, because um, it's all serverless, right? And you've seen how people have always how people have how people have embraced Lambda, how people have embraced Fargate, those things that you don't need to. You can just focus on your application, right, and focus less on managing infrastructure. So that's what Bedrock is all about. There's more to it, but the point is that if you were building generative AI at scale in AWS, there's a service called Bedrock that you're going to use. But some of these things that you see on the left, there are things that you have to even take. You have to be taught like module, and then you can bring all of them together to build something, right? Which is not what I'll be doing today. But you can look forward to some sessions from me that will break some of these things down appropriately. Cool. So let's go back to the slide. So we did talk about Bedrock and Bedrock Agent Core. Just know Bedrock Agent Core is really is a it's more or less like you can operate production grade agents. This one is tailored really for production grade agents. You still can do it on the other side, but here the fact that you can actually bring custom runtimes, it makes Agent Core really 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 powerful, and it's something you should also look at for. Cool. So let's go back to the slide. We've just talked about Bedrock. So generative AI, meaning if you wanted to use a model that is already out there, especially the models that AWS supports around the application, you can just by calling the APIs, right? We've seen that all these things are driven by APIs. So key features, no infrastructure to manage. I've showed you that, which is exactly many of the services you love, DynamoDB, API Gateway, many of them, why do we love them? They are all serverless. You don't need to stress. You just need to know how to use them. And you're already global and you're servicing so many people at once, right? Customization, you can actually use your own, you can fine tune models, with your data to do some customization, but still, you still don't need to like, build one machine somewhere, right? It's private and secure, so you can actually lock your data down to your VPC if you wanted. You can select, like choice, select the best model for your use case. That's exactly what I showed in the UI, right? You can test different models, see how they behave with exactly what you are building, right? So common use case, you can use it for test generation, which is what many of us do. Like when you type ChatGPT, you send a message, it's generating text, generative AI, right? You can use it for summarization, you can use it for chatbot, conversational AI that we saw with Lex, content creation, copywriting, all that you can do. Code generation, documentation, right? If the model is there, it supports what you want to do, you can use it to do it, right? So on the left, you can see, for example, there is like things inside of S3, which is like serving as a knowledge base, whether through OpenSearch or through Bedrock. And then you just have like EKS that is calling it Lambda, and then you're using Bedrock as a service to pretty much do whatever you want to do around generative AI, right? So the point is that you don't really need to manage servers. It's all serverless, and you can enjoy all the same things you're already seeing with generative AI with Bedrock. Okay. But what if you are now hardcore? Like you're this guy, you'll be like, no, I don't want it to be easy. I want to do it myself. I'm a machine learning engineer. I'm a data scientist. I want to do it the hardcore way, right? Which is where SageMaker comes in. So just know whenever you hear SageMaker and you hear Bedrock, SageMaker is really fully managed. So fully managed service to build, train, deploy ML models. So if you saw at the beginning of this class, I told you the flow that happens, right? So if you wanted to own that entire life cycle, right, and do it yourself, that's where SageMaker comes in. Okay. And like I said, as time goes on, many, unless companies that are really interested in taking, many companies don't do this. Not a lot of companies do SageMaker. Right? If you know SageMaker, like the core ML, it's good, it's nice, but that's why I said generative AI is one of the big opportunities that I see coming in. So end-to-end ML workflow in one platform, meaning you can train, you can do all the testing, validation, do everything using SageMaker, right? Um, but the point is that SageMaker is like a tool that AWS gives you for you to do all your machine learning model training, deploying, and at scale, right? So if you didn't want to do it with your on-prem, setting up your machines, setting up your clusters to do it, SageMaker can give you the tool. SageMaker is a tool that gives you that same even more, because there you can request machines that are very, very powerful, right? That can train your models, right? So it reduces complexity and time to market. And you've seen how that is in AWS, where it's just very easy. You just go, you click, you have a machine already. No matter how big that machine is, you get it, right? You can obviously everything around machine learning, whether you want to do Jupyter notebooks, labeling, feature engineering, all these are all core machine learning terms. But you can do all that in SageMaker, right? You can train distributed, so you can do distributed training on managed infrastructure, meaning, yeah, you can do training at scale, right? And then you can do auto scaling also when you deploy your model and you want it to start serving more or less like serving response to your end user. You can scale that also, right? So let's see what that would look like. So remember, we've seen Bedrock, we've seen Bedrock Agent Core, and then now let's look at what SageMaker looks like in the UI. SageMaker is obviously, like I said, it's not. I think there is now SageMaker AI, which is the new kit. It used to be called, but now there's like the unified SageMaker AI, right? That you can see, you can have a studio. So I'll just zoom in a bit. But on this, you can have it like a studio. If you work with machine learning before, you understand what like a studio like. It's like a studio where you can do all your building. You can have like a canvas. You can have a tensor board, profiler, notebooks. I mean, this is like you going really core, like going if you were really like focused on building machine learning. Definitely, SageMaker is obviously advanced stuff. It's not something we even want to like stress on. But the point is that whenever you see it, just know that, or if you are interested here, is if you're ever picking interest in SageMaker, is because you want to own the entire pipeline. So the training, all that, you want to do it, but SageMaker gives you the tool. SageMaker is that tool that can help you do it. So you create a studio. In that studio, there'll be notebooks for you to train. You can, have machines that will train, machines that will do inference. You can do all that and just, get going. You can see in fact, I didn't even open this part, but you will see many features in SageMaker as time goes on. You can do labeling jobs, you can do processing jobs, you can do training, algorithms, training jobs. You can do inference. So inference training is a thing. Inference is when your model is good, now you want to infer, right? So you can create endpoints, you can call those endpoints to make inference. You can even do augmented AI. The point is that SageMaker itself is a subject, and that's why these are the things you are tested when you ever go for like the machine learning specialty certifications, right? Because that needs knowledge of this. For you to all this, you have to understand how they work, but it's not beginner class. It's not for beginners. So at this, just on the as time goes on, you continue to increase your knowledge, but just know that whenever you see the question that someone wants to build, own the entire machine learning process end to end, SageMaker is that tool, right? While Bedrock is really for generative AI. You're using existing models and you're just basically using them, generative AI models, and you're using them. And then you can also, for the ones that support fine tuning, You can't do some fine tuning on top of it. Okay. Um, Agent Core, obviously, I talked about it briefly, but Agent Core is new. It's very, very new, but it's also something to look out for, right? There's always innovation in the cloud. Cool. With that said, let's see what's next. Let's see what is going to be next in the slide. Yeah, when you think about it, it's something like this. One of the benefits also for SageMaker, for example, you still don't need to manage it. Remember, it's still no infrastructure management still, right? Because those machines are given to you, but you still don't need to manage them. The beauty of it is just the fact that time to market, you can easily get machines. We know machine learning requires power, right? It requires a lot of power for you to, but now the cloud can just give you machine as you go, as you need, right? Pay only for what you use, meaning if you're not running any machine learning work or something, you can just let those machines go, right? And we've seen all those benefits. Built-in algorithms and frameworks, you will see many of that. TensorFlow, PyTorch, like I said, all these are all a bit. If some people don't even know what TensorFlow is or PyTorch, but these are things you are going to work with if you are really doing core machine learning work in whether it's in AWS or outside of AWS, right? And then integrated, obviously, as you know, many of the AWS infrastructure, everything you see on AWS, there's this tight integration, right? S3, Redshift, Athena. We've not done Redshift very advanced, but at least you know S3, Athena, all that integrates very well with many of the data services. And like I've said, I think machine learning goes well hand in hand with data, right? Because you have to deal with data for you to effectively do machine learning inside of AWS. So that's why sometimes S3, Redshift, Athena become subject streaming platforms where you're streaming data, you're ingesting them, you're storing them. All that becomes a conversation when you're dealing with anything machine learning, especially SageMaker, right? Cool. So when you look at this use case that I put here, data scientists, so building custom ML models for specific business needs. And that's why I said that not a lot of companies do data scientists. Like how many companies, unless they have like custom machine learning that they are building and deploying, right? That's why I said more opportunity lies in generative AI, especially if you were not like tech, if you were not from a tech background, right? Gen AI is something everyone can do. Just the way you're using ChatGPT, you still can, leverage that same ChatGPT with generative AI on AWS to build very, very, very interesting apps. And I'm going to be sharing some on this journey. I'm going to be sharing how AWS has made all that easy, right? So in this case, there's just a simple image that's there, raw image, right? There's like a processing part. SageMaker is going to handle that. You can do all this processing. And then from there, the process image is obviously stored to S3 again. And then that becomes a training job, or like it becomes like a data store for training, right? Which is obviously done again with SageMaker. It does the training. After that, the model is built. And I think I showed you the process itself. But after a training, if the training went well and you validated it and it's working well, what will come out of that is a model. And you can also use SageMaker now to create an inference for that model, where you can now send that that endpoint to someone, and then they can just call it and get result out of it, right? You can also use the ECR as the container repository, because when you are training your own model, in this case, either ways a container will be built, and there will be like a container, there will be an image that will be built, that will be used, right? Which is kind of different. Many of these things are taken away from you if you're going the generative AI route, right? But the point is that you can own the entire workflow from processing to the training to the inferencing, all that with SageMaker. Cool. Wow, it's been a long model, trust me. Like AI is not one of the. It's nice, like it's nice to talk about AI, but it's not. It's one of those subjects where it's. But honestly, I'm happy. Just in two classes, in two class, we've seen all this, right? So we've talked about ML foundation itself. So if you were to talk core ML, you're talking SageMaker for building custom ML models. Bedrock is really for generative AI applications, which is, I would always say it. I love it. Generative AI is something. Look out for it. Then we looked at the language AI, which is like for transcribing. When you want to transcribe, I said the keyword for transcribe is like a transcription is a text. So speech to text is transcribe. Poly will do the reverse, right? So text to speech. And we saw how translate can take from one language to another language, and we saw how comprehend will do text analysis, to do NLP on top of your text, right? And then we looked at some vision. So we did a part of the vision, right? We did recognition, how you could recognize, and we did do a sample in the call where we just we saved the face and then we searched based on that face, right? And text extract, we saw you could use that to extract text, right? Just to extract from documents. So intelligent document processing, we also saw that. And then, we now start looking at some of the intelligent applications, right? Like how personalized will help you do recommendation, and how recommendation is a thing. It just depends on if you're using it or not, right? TikTok works that way. Many of the things, content that comes to you is based on what you're seeing, where you're commenting, all that. Those are actions. Those are things you are doing that is being tracked. And then that is used to recommend content to you. Okay. We saw how Kendra can take that forward, more or less like now you have all this content here and there. You can just build more or less like an enterprise search using all this content, right? Using Kendra. And then we saw Lex. Lex was what we actually built on this call, right? Quickly, we just built a very small bot that was already trying to do, book my mentorship for me, handle that, right? And yeah, and then how Connect does cloud contact center. So this slide, if you know this slide, I think you would at least to some extent know all the AI solutions in Bedrock. Obviously, there's Bedrock Agent Core, but it's all Bedrock, right? And which is where the focus is going to. There's more opportunities around Bedrock than SageMaker, because SageMaker, you still not a lot of companies do more or less like their own custom. You see the word custom ML models, right? But everybody is using generative AI. The fact that you're doing ChatGPT, you're doing cost, all that is generative AI, and that's why I see there will be more opportunities in the generative AI space, right? Whether for app builders or for infrastructure or cloud computing engineers. Cool. Um, I think I think we've done well. So that brings us to the end of ML module. Okay. That brings us to the end of the class. And